First of all, I'm Ned Gold. I've had the honor of being able to work with the Boy Scouts to get this incredible collection here. And I think everybody knows that Norman Rockwell, of course, was the first Boy Scout artist. And then Joseph Csatari mentored with and you're going to hear a lot more here in a moment about that under Rockwell. And he became the second BSA artist. And these are his works for the Boy Scouts of America. And we're so proud that he was able to be here with his whole family. They came in, and the opportunity to have him here is incredible. I'm not sure that Joe has ever seen the entire collection at one time.
No, this is
first time. First time in the whole family. So you're seeing first of all, when you come in the foyer, you see a lot of his paintings, and then here is, of course, the majority of them, including the portraits, all of that. They're all Csatari paintings. And Jeff is his son, and we've got the rest of the family here. Wendy, I won't call you hamburger today. Long story. And this is Csatari, and then we have Jeff. Where's Joe?
Joe had to run back. His daughter's in the soccer game, so
he went home. Okay.
Yeah, how it is.
All right, that's his son Joe Jr. was here last night. So we're very pleased to present Jeff, who, by the way, has done a lot of writing about his father's works, and that's why he will be giving the information today. I hate to call it a lecture, but a lecture. And so thank you for coming out.
Let's see if I need this. Okay. Is that good? You guys hear me like this? No? Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. I don't know what the weather's out like that. Was it raining? Was it raining when you got in here? No. Well, thanks so much for coming. What an amazing museum. And last night we were here for a big event, and it was phenomenal. It was really phenomenal. So thank you to Ned Gold for putting this together, and Caitlin Russo and the board of the Medici Museum. This was just an incredible space, and we are very, very lucky to be here. This is, as Ned was saying, this is the first time we've seen all of Dad's paintings together in one place, along with all of Rockwell's paintings, and this has never happened before, so we're all very, very privileged. This is a real special opportunity for my family. This is like walking into a family photo album, right? Because almost, on every painting we can see my brother, my sister, my cousins, my neighbors. Here's my troop, Troop 26, North Brunswick, New Jersey. And that's me, the long-haired guy with the fish, catching a fish. I don't catch fish. I fish, I don't catch fish. But let's see, who else do we have? So the Weebo Scout, that's my brother Joe. And let's see, this is the reunion painting. That's my scoutmaster up there, who happens to be my Uncle Byron. That's my mom, Susan. My football coach, Joe Brzezowski. Dad's buddy, Finky Sabo. And then our sergeant of police up there. So Dad, just like Rockwell, Dad uses all of his neighbors, all of his family. We're very inexpensive models, our family. So anyway, Mom and Wendy, we're so glad you're here. And that's my dad. If you haven't met him, say hello. Hey, Dad. So let's see who else we have here. Okay, I showed you that. And oh, here's Wendy. She's not in any of the scout paintings because girls weren't allowed to be scouts back then. But she modeled quite a bit. This is Wendy for a book cover that my dad did for Avon Books. Okay, so anyway, while Dad used his share of professional models, as I said, he used his family and his neighbors, and he also used himself That's Dad. He showed us how it's really done. Look at those eyes. He's an actor at heart. When you think about it, actually, I have another one. There he is. He's playing Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. That's my Uncle Fred in the corner over there. When you think about it, my dad's going to be 93 in a couple of months. He's been involved with scouting for 60 years. He started as a Boy Scout in Troop 4 in South River, New Jersey. Then he spent about 20 years as an employee of the BSA National Council when they were in New York City, then New Brunswick, then North Brunswick. He didn't make the trip down to Dallas. At that time, he decided to go freelance. And then the next 40 years he spent as the official artist of the Boy Scouts of America, a role he inherited from his friend and mentor, Norman Rockwell. Over his career, he made more than 150 Scout illustrations, drawings, portraits, and gosh, there must be 56, 60 paintings that we have here. Dad loved the Scouts. Camping, playing capture the flag, art merit badge, of course, and axe throwing. He was really good at axe throwing. Back in the day, he was very good at axe throwing. The first day he got his uniform in South River, he was so excited, he walked around town with his buddy Frank Coos, just looking for American flags to salute. That's how he was. My father thinks he made it as far as Star Scout before his artwork interests yanked him by the neck and he devoted all of his free time to drawing and painting. He found a calling, a passion at a young age, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Now that's kind of rare. Not many of us know what we want to do at age 14. But Dad has always made the point to scouts he's spoken to that if you look hard enough, in time you'll find a passion that gets you up out of bed every morning excited. From the time Dad was a scout, he wanted to paint like Norman Rockwell. His older brother Johnny, who was a pretty good artist in his own right, would bring copies of Saturday Evening Post home from the newsstand, and the two brothers would practice copying Norman Rockwell in oil and in paint and in charcoal. In high school, Dad took a correspondence course just because Rockwell was one of the featured artists. And then when he went to art school at the Newark Academy of Art, he took a job in the museum sweeping floors at night to make a couple extra bucks, but really to be up close and personal alone with all of the Rockwells that were in the museum. And one night, with his nose very close to a Rockwell painting, he saw a loose brush bristle in a thick stroke of paint. And he looked around, and it was nearly falling out, so he plucked it out, he put it in a gum wrapper and stuck it in his wallet. Now, we're in a museum, do not do that. That's wrong. I'm really surprised at you, Dad, you did that, and I don't know why you did. It was about to fall out. Anyway, the day he went to meet Norman Rockwell in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, he had that brush bristle still in his wallet. In art school, Dad impressed his professors so much, they often asked him to teach the drawing classes. Oh, there are the guys. They had the same smile. Look at that. Okay. And one time, Dad did a painting with Dwight Eisenhower, and the dean of the school was so impressed that he arranged for Dad to deliver the painting to Eisenhower at the White House. And remember that, Dad? And Eisenhower was a painter himself. And so they spent a very lively half hour talking about canvas and brushes and that sort of thing. And there's the painting there, and there's a picture of Ike at his easel. I've been looking for this painting for about 10 years. I called all the museums, the Eisenhower Library, and I couldn't find it. Then about 2 years ago, a woman wrote to Dad's website and said, I have this painting. It was, I inherited it from my uncle Johnny Money. Johnny Money was Eisenhower's valet during World War II and at the White House. And when I left the White House, he gave it to his valet Johnny, and it's been in the family ever since. So it was really nice to see that painting, and thank God for the internet. We can find things like this. Here's some early drawings that my dad did when he was a mechanical man at the Boy Scouts of America. He was a layout guy in the art department for the supply division. And he did these in pen and ink. The one on the right is an illustration he did for Boys Life magazine when he started there as art director. And by the way, Rockwell started as an art director for Boys Life magazine, so it was a nice connection. All right, let's see. Yeah, that was a recruitment poster. That's my cousin Billy and my cousin Roger. And I think that's back there somewhere. We saw that for the first time in a long, long time. Dad had some fun as in the supply division here. He's selling some belts. He made these two paintings for an Order of the Arrow Lodge out in Staten Island back in 1963. The one on the left, the one on the right, which is the Heir vision. And then 4 years later, the lodge had a big pie. They made tons of pies, and they sold all of these pies to pay for that painting, The Ordeal. And these are amazing. I don't know where these are, but we should find them. They're really terrific. But as you'll see, Dad's style changed quite a bit, as you can see in Rockwell's work as well. And there they are in Rockwell's studio. Okay. In 1966, Dad got his longtime wish. He met Rockwell and became his art director for the next 10 years on Rockwell's last Scout paintings for the calendar publisher Brown and Bigelow. Rockwell had a habit of taking a nap every afternoon when Dad was at his studio. He'd take a nap. So Dad walked over to the old Corner House Museum that held all of Rockwell's paintings. And one day he was in there, and he looked up in the room, and there were these painters on the ceiling slapping white latex on the ceiling, and they were splattering the Four Freedoms below. So he freaked out and ran back and woke Rockwell up and said, "Norman, they're painting and they're getting paint on your Four Freedoms." And Rockwell took a big puff of his pipe and smiled at Dad and said, "Gee, Joe, maybe they'll improve them." That's the way Rockwell was. He didn't care what he had done. He approached every painting, Dad would tell me, like a scout plane captured a flag. He just wanted to get on to the next painting. Okay, so this is a painting. I don't know if you've seen it. It's down. It's in the other. That's right. So the story behind this is that Rockwell asked my dad to send him up some model photographs from the New York modeling agencies, and he did. But he also included a little snapshot of my mother. And Rockwell called him up and said, "Joe, I like all of these, but I prefer the real-looking woman in the blonde hair. Would you bring her up?" And Dad brought Mom up. Rockwell had no idea. And when he introduced the model to Norman, he said, "Norman, I'd like you to meet the den mother. This is my wife, Sue." And that's my mom there. That's Sue. And she, I think Rockwell was smitten with you, Dad, Mom. He loved when you would come up to visit. But this is interesting. It tells you a little bit about the difference between what you're seeing here in my dad's exhibit and Rockwell's work. Look at nobody's smiling. And there was a reason for this. The Boy Scouts really wanted to show very stoic, very serious. It was about the time, right? And so there wasn't a lot of smiling. Of course, as a recruitment poster, if you're a Cub Scout, does he look like he's having a lot of fun? He really doesn't. But, and this one, this is one of my favorites, by the way. Scout is helpful. But the thing here is, this is a flood after a hurricane, and that Scout looks like he stepped out of a Ralph Lauren commercial, and there's not a speck of mud on him, no water, you know. But that's how the Boy Scouts wanted Rockwell to depict the Boy Scouts in his paintings. And then we get to the Hank painting. The story here, Dad came up to his studio with all of the uniforms, and little Hank was Rockwell's #1 child model. He loved little Hank. And Dad told little Hank to go in and get dressed up, and he walked out looking like this. And he had on a uniform that was 3 times too big. And Dad said, "Norman, there's your next painting. That's perfect." And Norman looked at him and he laughed. He said, "I love it, Joe, but the Boy Scouts will never go for it. They don't like humor." And eventually Dad convinced him that here he is, a Weeblo Scout or a Cub Scout, can't wait to become a Boy Scout like his big brother. So he put on his big brother's uniform. And it turns out that the Boy Scout brass, the Chief Scout executive, loved the idea, and this became one of Rockwell's most beloved Scout paintings, and the one that has the most humor, and you can't wait. And as you can see, Rockwell put a lot of detail in these, and up in the upper left-hand corner there you see the Cub Scout looking up to his older brother in the photograph. Oh, and of course, there's got to be a dog in the painting, right? So Rockwell. That's the charcoal study that Rockwell made before the painting, and there he is with his favorite model, Little Hank. This was actually shot in the woods behind the National Council office in North Brunswick, New Jersey. This is for a painting called "We Thank Thee, O Lord." And something interesting here, what you're seeing, look at the guidelines for the tent and the point of the tent. This is what's called pyramid structure, pyramid composition, and you can see it very closely here. It's every line is angled toward the Scouts saying a prayer at the table. Rockwell and Dad used that technique very often. And Rockwell and Dad learned it from the Renaissance masters. This is Da Vinci's Mother and Child in St. Anne. And you can see here, from the Lamb to the Child to Mary to Saint, there's a line going up, drawing your eye to St. Anne. And as you can see here in the Scoutmaster, one of my favorites here, this is just beautiful. You've got all of these angles, the angles holding up the pot, the sticks, the tents, all focused on the face of the Scoutmaster. This gives you a little insight into how Rockwell worked. Dad and he would come up with an idea. They sketched it out on tracing paper, really rough. Rockwell did that and put it down with tape. And that is what he used for the photo session. Dad would come up, bring up all of the models to Stockbridge, and Louis Lamone, Norman's favorite photographer, would come in and shoot the picture. In this case, this is Rockwell's last painting, 1976, The Spirit of 76. That's my Uncle Byron, my Scoutmaster back there. My cousin Byron up front. And I'm just off camera, believe it or not. There's a string holding up the American flag. Rockwell said, "Jeff, we need our flag to flutter." So he tied a string to the flag and he sent me up to his loft to hold it up so the flag, it was really hot up there. I was 11, I didn't want to be there. But Rockwell gave me $25 for doing that and a check. And I promptly cashed it and bought a Joe Namath football when I got home. But Dad had the foresight to make a copy of that check, so I have some proof that I did this little deed for Norman Rockwell back in the day. Okay. That was Rockwell's last Scout painting. The one on the left is Dad's first. In 1977, he took over for Rockwell as the official artist of the Boy Scouts of America, and for the next 40 years, did quite a bit of painting. Okay, let's see. Another one of my favorites, Eagle Scout Court of Honor, and then here's the anniversary painting, 2010. That's the last one he did for the national office. This painting over here, honoring the 100th anniversary of the National Eagle Scout Association, was the last painting he did for the National Eagle Scout Association. Let me show you a little bit of the other side of the canvas. Dad's other work, he was the Boy Scout artist, but he was also a commercial artist who did quite a bit of book covers. Both of these are book jacket illustrations, and you can see very reminiscent of Rockwell's humor. The story behind this one was, at the photo shoot, this baby was the happiest baby in the world and just would not cry. But the mom brought the model baby in, and Dad said, "We got to get him to cry." So she said, "Oh, no problem." She took some water in her hand from the bottle and went like that in his face, and he burst out crying. It was a perfect shot. Get on the model's shoulder and snap the picture, and that's how it happened. This is Bad News Bears Go to Japan movie poster, and that is, who is that? What? Tony Curtis. Is that you, Wendy? This and the boy in the back?
That is me.
That is you. This is a painting he did for the College Football Hall of Fame in the MacArthur Bowl exhibit. General MacArthur in the background, and that represents the first college football game against Rutgers and Princeton. This is a cover of Jack and Jill magazine. That's my brother Joe looking at the turkey. Some advertisements. This one was for Miracle Grow. This was for an insurance company. And portraits. That's my grandfather, Dad's father John. That's a watercolor. He did a lot of, they made him an honorary Catholic. He made so many portraits of nuns and Catholic priests, they made him an honorary Catholic. This is Field and Stream magazine illustration. Some fine art and watercolors. Okay, let's see if I can get this to play. it gives you a little look at Dad's work and what he's done the past 70 years. Whoop, there we go. On one of my dad's last visits to Rockwell's studio, he asked Norman, Norman, did you use Michelangelo's David as a pose for tomorrow's leader? And Rockwell took a puff of his pipe and said, Joe, when you copy from the best. And you can see he did that here. And Dad feels that he learned that lesson very well. He copied from the best, his friend and mentor, Norman Rockwell. And we have his artwork to see here today to show for them. Thank you so much for coming. Being so attentive, if you have any questions, we'll try and answer them for you. But thanks again, really, for coming out on this crazy day and seeing all of this work. Thanks. Yes.
Is your surname Italian or Hungarian?
It's Hungarian. The pronunciation is Csatari in Hungarian. It means from the battlefront. But when I was growing up in high school, nobody could say Csatari. They always called me Shit-Terry. And so I said, Dad and I said, we're Csataris now. And actually, no. Back in Dad's early career, people had trouble saying that name, so he started using Csatari. But there's the story behind that. But we are Hungarian. Dad's parents were born in Hungary. They came over on the ship Belengaria, and when Dad wanted to go to art school, his father was a coal miner, and he also worked in a brick factory and a wire factory, and he was hesitant to have Dad go to art school. He said, how could you make a living making paintings and drawings? But you convinced your dad, and my grandfather had some foresight, and he said, well, we're in a new country, you do what you want to do. And, right? That's Grandpa. And so he went to art school, and the rest is history. But his brother Johnny was just as good as an artist as my dad, but he was the older son in the family and had to go to work at the local gunpowder plant and make money for the family. So Dad was the baby of the family and benefited from that. Yeah, Nick.
Did anybody else in the family get the artistic gene, the next generation?
Yeah, we're asked that question a lot, and I wish we could say yes. But no, I'm sure you all can draw stick figures much better than I can. Actually, no, my sister took design classes, and she's got a real talent with a pen and a pencil. But no, none of us have pursued that as a career. I write. I've been an editor and a book writer for many years. But
I think it skipped some generations. We have cousins and even cousins' children, and we have some artists in the family. So
Yes.
we
Yeah.
yeah.
Anything else? Yes.
Today's day and age when so much is made about race issues and so forth, if you look at these, you'll see there is the inclusion of the races
Yes.
in a lot of the artist's work. And it's really kind of heartwarming to see back in those days how it was, and we'd sure like to see it get back to it today. Yes.
Absolutely, and the Boy Scouts recognized that, and when my dad started, I mean, if you look at Rockwell's, there are very few images of people in his paintings compared to Dad. Like, take a look at this. And this came about because the Scouts recognized that they had to show diversity. This was back in the 70s when my dad started off, and we had to include, all of the different ethnicities, and it made the job a little harder for Dad because with a composition, it's so much easier to do one figure like that Eagle Scout over there than it is to do a composition like one of these. The images are much smaller and much more technical to create a composition that still tells the story. So it was challenging for them, but it was a necessity for the Scouts, and I think it's a good thing. It's a very good thing because these are recruitment posters for Scouting. And I was very excited when Dad started showing girls in the paintings. This, I think, was one of the first ones with the scuba divers. This sea base. No, that's not the sea base. That was sea base was over there. That's right. Here's another one. Dreams have become this was the venturing initiative. Well, what's interesting, just like Rockwell's Dad started out with doing sketches, very, very rough sketches. Some of these are very rough. This one over here is on tracing paper, and he was just sketching out an idea. But he would do about 4 or 5, sometimes as many as 6 charcoal or pencil sketches, each one getting a little bit more detailed before he went into a full charcoal of the size of the painting and work in oil on canvas. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about the posters that were printed, and then also, is there a collection of his works in the book?
Yes, so Rockwell started out doing these paintings for Brown and Bigelow, the calendar company, and it was, those calendars were sometimes the only piece of art that was in homes around the country back in the 30s and 40s, and even the 50s. Brown and Bigelow continued to do Scout calendars when my dad started, and he did it for about 10 years before they stopped doing that. Since then, the Scouts always made prints of Dad's work, and but they are not doing those any longer, and they're very rare to find. Several years ago, about 7 years ago, maybe it was longer than that, Dad and I collaborated on a book called Norman Rockwell's Boy Scouts of America that shows, here Ned's holding up a copy of it. It's out of print now, and it's really hard to find a copy on the internet. We've been looking, and but the first half of the book are all of Rockwell's 50 paintings, and then the second half of the book are all of Dad's paintings that he did for the Scouts. And it was a labor of love. We had a lot of fun putting it together, and we're very proud of it.
You did a great job, Jeff.
Have anything to say, Dad?
Yep.
What would you like to say? Say thanks for everybody coming out.
Thank you for coming out.
I would like to thank everyone for coming out today, and I see so many of you that I could use as models. This is a joy, and thanks, Jeff. He's one of my favorite models.
Okay. You owe me.
I'll never forget working with Norman Rockwell. I remember one time, about the third week I worked with him, he came up to me and he said, I could imitate him pretty well. Joe, I don't know how to tell you this, but I fell in love with your wife.
Yeah, I mean, they were really good friends, and Rockwell really appreciated Dad because Rockwell had a lot of art directors, but a lot of art directors aren't illustrators and don't paint, but here he had an art director who was technically almost to Rockwell's level, and Rockwell recognized that, and he knew that when he was talking to my dad, he knew they had this kind of, I don't know, they were thinking the same things when they.
Language.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they came up with ideas, they were on the same wavelength, and it was a really special thing. And Rockwell appreciated it, especially in his later years when he wasn't getting around as well. And sometimes he asked Dad to, I'm tired today, Joe, can you take over and start painting? And Dad would do the boots and some of the minor areas, and it was the biggest thrill of his life. He's in Rockwell's studio painting on his canvas, using his brushes and paints. I mean, imagine if you had a mentor and you had that opportunity. So he felt very fortunate. So, yes?
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Is there a favorite in the room? Okay.
We've been getting that question. Do you have a favorite here, Dad?
Do you have a favorite painting here?
A favorite one? My God, they're all favorites. I use Jeff a lot. I use my wife. He and I got along so well.
Yeah.
They're all favorites. I think
Yeah,
they're all favorites.
we've asked him over the years. He doesn't really have a favorite. I mean, he always points to the ones that his family is in. The one, I don't know if you can see it back there, the Scoutmaster. That was a favorite of his, just because it was such a hard one to pull off. You have to get the right Scoutmaster, right, for that. And the story behind that was he would walk through the mall looking for models often, and he was having difficulty finding the right model for Scoutmaster. We were at Stride Rite, I think it was, and he looked out, and there was a guy walking by, and he said, that's him. He's perfect. He got so excited, he ran up to him, and he said, "Sir, I gotta shoot you." and the man, said, "You're gonna do what to me?" And he was a big strapping guy, and he reached out in his back pocket, and he lifted, and his gun was over here, and he pulled out his state trooper badge and said, "I'm a state trooper, you're gonna do what?" And Dad said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I just got so excited, I'm a Boy Scout artist." And then he said, "Oh, I'd be glad to pose for you." That's how it went down. Yes. Yeah, who are your favorite artists, Dad, besides Norman?
Besides Norman, who are your favorite artists? We have so many art books.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Ah, there you go. The masters. Anybody else? How about
Stephen DeHanas, Norman Rockwell, L. Parker. Yeah.
John
They
Faulkner,
were all wonderful artists.
Linedecker?
We all had the same experiences growing up.
Yeah.
And it was like I was in heaven, believe me. They were so great.
Yeah, he had the opportunity not only to work with Rockwell, but with a number of these really fine artists. Stephen DeHanas in particular was the art director for the commemorative U.S. postage stamp commemorative editions, and he commissioned Dad to do 2 U.S. postage stamps, one for the Seeing Eye dogs, and then another for the Red Cross. But Stephen DeHanas, he was an artist in Westport, Connecticut, and they had a bond because DeHanas was Hungarian too. So when they would get together, they would speak in Hungarian and talk about art. So that was kind of nice. Yeah. Yes.
Does your dad still dabble or do any painting today?
No painting. He dabbles with some drawing every once in a while. He'll pick up his pen and pencil and drawing pad and sketch something out. He had a fall a couple years ago and was in the hospital, and he had all the nurses coming in, and he was there. He likes to draw nurses. So anyway, no, he you know, after so many years, the arthritis, he can't lift his arm to work on the canvas any longer. But he can draw a little bit now. But we're giving him a break. He's been at it a while.
Can you talk about concept development, about how he got the idea?
Yeah.
And then you talked about the sketching.
Right.
And then what would be the timeline or process to put that painting together?
Yeah, well, it would start with, like you said, the concept, and it would be Dad and Rockwell getting together, and then when Rockwell was no longer around, Dad did this on his own. Dad came up with most of the ideas. He knew what the scout theme, each year the scouts had a theme for the painting. It might be scouting for food, or it might be the sea base, or it might be, who knows, whatever. So he had a general idea what he would have to create. And he would do thumbnail sketches. We have tons of these at home on tracing paper. We're finding them in drawers everywhere. I mean, little thumbnail sketches for all of these things. Multiple concepts, maybe 10 or 12 for each painting. Then they would choose one that they really liked, or he really liked, and he would do a very rough concept. And if he liked that, he would go a little bit more detail. And then with that rough in charcoal or pencil, he would take it down to national headquarters and show the committee. And the committee would batter it back and forth and say, yeah, we want another scout here, we want somebody here. And then he would go back to the drawing board and do another sketch and another sketch. And ultimately, when they approved it, he would do a full-size charcoal. And that's where the real work, he would always say that's where the real work was done, in that fine charcoal. And once he had that, he would make the oil painting on canvas. And what's interesting, he worked from photographs just like Rockwell. But what he did often, we took about 300 photos for every one of these. And he would sometimes like a picture with the arm like this, and the other picture was just slightly askew. So he would cut out that arm that he liked and paste it on the other photograph. So we would have these collages of photographs, and he would stick that on his canvas, and that's what he would draw from. And people would come up and say, what is this? It's just so weird. It's like a cutout, paper dolls or something like that. And that's how he worked. Did that answer your question?
How long?
Oh, how long? It's probably a 2-month process. Dad was slower than Rockwell, right? Rockwell was very prolific. He was so fast. But Dad liked to use stable brushes and do a lot more detailed work on a lot of these paintings. And that took a little bit more time. Rockwell was a little bit quicker with the brushes, bristle brushes. And of course he did use sable, and he did do fine detail work, but Dad was a lot about detail.
Well, could you explain though that the paintings were always a year in advance that were on these easels? So, you know, for the 2007 painting, it would be a year before that he was working on it. And sometimes, really, from start to finish, it was more than 2 months.
Right. And of course, he was doing other work in between.
Yeah.
So he would have that on his easel, and then on another easel, he'd have a book cover that he was working on. And then he did something for Time magazine, and they wanted something in 2 days. So he'd stop everything, take pictures, crank out something very, very quickly. So it was a fluid kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, it took him a while, especially some of these larger pieces. And sometimes, and this would frustrate us because, Dad, it looks great. And then you'd go into his studio the next day, and the head is gone. It's all white. What did you do? I didn't like the way the head looked, so he took it out and redid it. He was kind of a perfectionist that way. Great questions. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Did he keep all the charcoals and all the sketches?
Yes. Yeah. In his contract, he got to keep all of his sketches and preliminaries, and but the Boy Scouts owns all of these. And there are a few that Dad did on his own. He did quite a few, actually. Oil paintings, studies that we have in the house, and it's nice to be surrounded by Boy Scouts all over our house. But yeah, he did a lot of studies, but we're actually surprised to see them here. Because we haven't seen these and we don't know how they got them. But they look nice. It's nice to see them because it shows people who come in and they can see the progression of the beginning of an idea to the final product.
One other question. Is this the only place these two will be in the country? And how does one get them?
That's a good question that I'll let Caitlin or Ned speak to.
Well, we worked through the Boy Scouts because all of these were in storage. And frankly, I think what persuaded the Boy Scouts, when I met with the Chief Scout Executive and the National, the General Counsel of the DSA at the summit, you can see the summit right over here, Bethel Reserve, when they had the World Jamboree 2 years ago. And I met with them and said, we really, and I said, we really would like to get them for the Medici. And at that point, they said, we decided to keep them in storage. Came back here extremely disappointed. And I wrote a letter, and I said, look, we know that the Boy Scouts are going to have to go bankrupt, which is sad. You all know the story there. And we know that the paintings will probably be sold in bankruptcy. It's better to have them on the wall of a museum than in storage in Dallas, Texas. And that resonated. And a few weeks later, I got an email saying, you've got it. We worked and we put the contract together, and on January 31 of 2020, the paintings arrived. We have roughly 430 of paintings, so obviously they're not all up. We don't have room for them. And what I've now learned is that Rockwell will probably be sold in bankruptcy. But it doesn't appear now that the Csataris will be sold, and we will have them here for an indefinite period of time. But we'll probably, let other museums have portions of them as we go forward. We don't have all of those issues worked out. But right now, they're here for the long term.
Yeah.
Well, we're not sure. It just depends on the bankruptcy court in Delaware. Because what's going to happen is that right now, tentatively, I have a feeling this is what it will be, the Boy Scouts are going to give the Rockwell paintings to the trustees of the abuse trust. That is where the money that is for which the paintings are sold will be used to help fund the abuse trust. That all can change, but right now that's the plan that's been proposed to the bankruptcy court, and we have no idea when that will happen. Probably sometime in early summer we'll let it start, and that's when we'll probably lose the Rockwells. But it's all based upon whatever the bankruptcy judge says is going to happen. And if anybody wants to help fund it and buy a painting, or rather, it would be really nice to buy all the paintings. If anybody's got the money, we'll take it. We'll find a way to get it to Anna. All right.
There's a saying, fortune favors the bold. Ned was pretty damn bold to get all the